Okay, Mr. Mayor, you're all set.
Thanks, sir. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the March 4th, 2021 Graham City Council meeting. For this meeting, the City of Graham is convening by Zoom video phone conference. To join the meeting, you may dial 253.215.8782 and enter meeting ID, which is 843 space 0061 space 6555. Zoom information is also posted on the City of Graham's website, identifying how the public can join. Due to the COVID-19, this meeting has been held via Zoom platform. The meeting will be live streamed by the City of Graham's YouTube page at www.youtube.com and type in City of Graham, North Carolina. Please note this meeting is being recorded. If you have any technical difficulties, call Preston Jenkins at 336-347-8674 for support. I'm Jerry Peterman, the Mayor of the City of Graham. I'd like to confirm that all our members in person anticipated on this agenda are present and can hear me. Members present, as I call your name, say you're here. Mayor Pro Tem Chip Turner.
Present.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Melody Wiggins.
Present.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Jennifer Talley.
Present.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilmember Ricky Hall.
Present.
Interim City Manager Eric Holland.
Here.
Finance Officer Julianne Corden, sorry.
Here.
City Clerk Darcy Sperry.
Here.
And our first presenter is Recreation and Parks Director Brian Fawcett. I think he is anyway. He may not be here yet. I think Burke is the first. Burke, are you here?
No, Brian is actually going to be first, but we have everyone in the waiting room until it's their time to come up, so we don't have a crowded screen.
Okay, good. So I'll just stop right there, and as you call them up, we'll call them up. This meeting, this is the information meeting for the City Council. We will not be asking questions to the staff. If you have questions, just write them down and we'll get them to the staff and they will answer them at a later date, or Aaron will answer them in one big giant answering memo. All the questions that you have will become public record. So we will put those questions out there for everyone to see. And this is the same for anybody that wants to call in. If you call in, we will take your question and answer it at a later date. We won't go live with those questions. So I'm gonna turn this over to Aaron and we're gonna go from there. Aaron, if you would.
All right. I'm going to try to share my screen right now, so please let me know if you see it.
Yes, we see it.
Ask a real quick question before we get started.
You've got a lot of echoing in the background, Jennifer.
Can you cut your sound off? In regards to the question about having the virtual meeting versus an open meeting, was it Tom Boney's assumption that we were all meeting in the chambers? Was that clarified to him that we're all meeting virtual as well? As this?
He actually did not ask us that. What he did was send us a question last night at 10 o'clock, which we were not meeting in the city council chambers. I'm here because of my poor reception at my home. I kept going in and out for the last couple of meetings when I was trying to do this at my house. But what we did, we went to our lawyers and asked if we were doing everything right. And our lawyers are saying we are. So the one person we have to rely on for that kind of information is Bob and Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't see that until this morning, and I just wanted to make sure it was addressed. So as long as it was
It
addressed.
is.
Okay.
It'll be addressed at our next meeting. That's when he asked us to address it. Not this meeting. This meeting was not going to be affected by that, other than me. If he comes in, we're going to let him in. He'll be in the council chambers by himself. So I think nobody's in the council chambers. So
that was the impression I got from the letter, is that he thought we were all meeting there and weren't letting people in, and that that wasn't the case. So
It wasn't the case, but even if it was the case, Brian and Bob both have said we were doing the thing properly. And that's who we're paying to know those kind of things. No offense to Tom Boney, but we pay Brian and Bob to let us know if we're right or not. And that's the people we got to rely on. Does that take care of it?
yes, it wouldn't matter who it was, but the fact that somebody wants to attend and they felt like they couldn't attend. I know in the past he has mentioned to me that he couldn't get on or ask a question or something. And so he just, I think was, I guess, but if this is not a question format meeting, he'll be given the opportunity to ask questions just like everybody else.
Exactly. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Jared.
You're welcome.
That was my only question. Thank you.
All right, let's get back to Aaron, if you would, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Are y'all able to see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
I am. Let's poll everybody else. I'm sorry. Can everybody else see it? It says City Council Virtual Budget Retreat.
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
All right. Just want to kind of have a quick few slides to run through to sort of set the table for the other department heads. As you can see on the screen right now, this is just a very, very short and sweet agenda of kind of what we're going to do today to sort of keep us on pace. And hopefully we'll be able to get through it in the time that's on the screen, but you know, plans change. But the budget retreat is probably one of my favorite parts of the budget process, mainly because it's the time that I get to sit down with all the different department heads and talk about some of the requests that they're wishing to ask for the upcoming year, as well as get updates on projects that they've been working on for the current year. And this whole budget retreat is for the department heads. It's traditionally been where they've had the floor to speak to council and discuss issues, challenges that they may have with their departments, while also being able to provide the list of requests that they're looking to ask for the upcoming year for funding. Julianne is in the room with me here. That's why my mask is on, but she's gonna help tag team some of these earlier slides to sort of help give the updates on the financial end for the city. And I wanted to start with this slide mainly because I know my mom and my sister are going to be watching this, and they're not the most savvy when it comes to budgeting. But if there are any other folks out there that are wanting to know what budgeting is and why we do it, I want to kind of have a budgeting one-on-one slide up front. We typically try to do these in person, and we don't usually have a big crowd when we have our budget retreats in the past, but being on Zoom, we're able to reach more individuals. So this is going to kind of give them an idea of how that budget process works throughout the year on a typical year. As you can see, the first part of the budgeting process is the preparation, which involves the development of the expenditure estimates for departments against the available revenues. So basically, you only can spend with the money you have, and it's basically what that's saying. And we basically are gathering now estimates of what those are going to be so that we are able to craft that budget. Then comes the approval part of the budget process, which these estimates are then submitted for council to review and make changes as they see fit. You know, as we all know, this document is only going to go as the council wishes it to go. So if there's something that you want to have changed when the budget comes, then that's when we do it. We make those changes, and then it's adopted, and that's the document that we use moving forward. And then obviously,
Aaron, are you forwarding those slides? It's kind of set on the very first slide. Are they supposed to be moving forward?
You should be on the budgeting 101 slide.
Okay, it's not.
There may be a lag on my end. Jeff, are you able to I sent you an email of the slides. Are you able to do it?
Sure, if you'll stop sharing your screen.
Okay, because I think it's a lag on it because we had this issue in the past.
Give me just a second.
No problem. And Jeff, if you can start it on the agenda one, and then they can kind of look at that one. I'm not sure which one that they saw first. What's on the screen?
I don't see anything with an attachment from you. Aaron, can you send it to me real quick again? Wait a minute. I found it. And which one did you want?
Let's advance to the next one just so they can kind of see. This is basically how I was looking at flowing through the meeting with the order of how we were going to progress through. And then you can go to the next one, which is the one I was on. There we go. And basically, as I was saying, the three major steps through the budgeting process was the preparation, the approval, and obviously the implementation, which is once we have an approved budget, then we're, the different departments, we're working through those throughout the year and auditing and amending as we need to going on. Jeff, you can go to the next one. All right, so some of the key takeaways that I kind of want to have in mind when we were working through the budget were, the budget is developed with the COVID-19 economic impacts in mind. It's still a big player in how decisions are being made. It's a big player in how budgets are being crafted and how the cities are operating. Also, we wanted to enhance long-term planning for future public infrastructure, which we made great strides this past year. In the past couple of years, actually, Frankie had a lot of foresight to take advantage of opportunities to put water and sewer lines down when we had the funds available, which opened up economic opportunities that we're going to be able to capitalize going forward. In addition to that, we also want to continue a strong investment in our employees. That's making sure that the health insurance is strong, making sure that we're providing the equipment needed and necessary for them to be able to do their jobs accordingly. But then there's also in the budget process that you think about is considering, your revenue sources, which are your, where you set your tax rate at, what your fees are going to be set at, stuff along those lines, versus the services that we are providing. Are we being equitable in that? Which I'm sure you're going to hear quite a bit from the different department heads as they go through their requests and updates. Jeff, you can go to the next one. Now, speaking on the tax rate, we're pretty much right above a few different municipalities in the city. I want to show this slide so that you can see. I know everyone on council knows where we are, but for the general public, this gives you an idea of basically where we stand amongst other municipalities and jurisdictions within the county. Jeff, you can go forward to the next one. And there's always a question of, well, if you raised a penny, what would that get you? What does a penny on our tax rate get you? Well, that gets you approximately $120,000. And to give you a little perspective of what that would equate to, that 1 cent, that $120,000 is what the cost of one officer with benefits and equipment would be. That 1 cent would be what 2 firemen would be with benefits, equipment, and salary. And it would be equivalent to a little over 3. I couldn't find a half of a sanitation worker, but it's about a little over 3 sanitation workers at that same tax rate. So that kind of gives you a perspective of how that 120,000 can be applied within these various different departments. You go to the next one, Jeff. So where are we now? And I know Julianne was going to touch on some stuff here, so I'm gonna turn it over to her. But just to give you an idea of smart budgeting, this is my image of Frankie. I saw this image, it kind of made me think of him. But you know, having to juggle and do a lot last year to make sure that we stay whole helped us to stay in a pretty good position, even with the pandemic being present. So we were able to defer some capital costs. We definitely increased our efficiency across the different departments, and we went with some smart conservative budgeting, and that helped us to stay afloat, where I know other municipalities and jurisdictions did have issues as far as being able to sustain at the levels that they were before. So I'm gonna let Julianne give you a little more financial information as well. So hold on 1 second.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Jeff, can you go to the next slide? All right, this is a fiscal year 21 kind of recap of where we are, where we were at for budget, and where we have come in actually through the end of January. Our general fund revenues are just under 10 million. That is 70% of our budget. Our expenditures are 6.7 million, and that's about 48% of what we budgeted the expenditures to be. Right now, we are having a gain in the general fund of $3 million. We will talk about why that is. Water and sewer fund, our revenues are at $4.7 million through the end of January, and that's about 58% of where we budgeted to be. Our expenditures are just under 4 million, which is 49%. And we have a gain right now of $745,000. These figures are through the end of January, which is 7 months in our budget. If we were to annualize that, we should be about 58% of the way through. General fund factors of why we have received about 70% of the budget, given that we're 58% through, is a couple of reasons. Property taxes due in January. We have most of our collections in the months of December and January. And as of this week, we were 95.7% through our collection. We ended last year at 97.65%. So between now and the end of June, we will collect the other 2 to 3% of taxes. Our fiscal year 21 ad valorem tax budget was $5,713,600. As a reference for you, the public safety expenditure budget was closer to $6 million. So revenues generated from taxes would not quite cover the cost of running our fire department and our police department. The other thing that is helping us out as far as collecting our revenues is sales tax. Sales tax has been strong across most of North Carolina. There are a few smaller municipalities that are struggling in this area, but North Carolina has been very fortunate through the pandemic as far as sales tax revenue. So through the end of January, we have actually collected 66% of our budget for sales tax. And again, remember, we're 58% through. So we are ahead in that manner. So we've collected more in revenue and we haven't spent as much. Why haven't we? We had deferred capital equipment and improvement projects until the spring of 2021. We have departments such as Public Works that the weather plays a big part of when they can do their projects. We will start seeing that spending coming in the next couple of months. Another point was that special events and gatherings were budgeted to be done this year. We did not know at the time we put this budget together whether we would be able to meet in person. And so they were budgeted, yet we've had to cancel those. The other thing that helped us is the Corona Relief Funds, that is CRF. That was state funds that were sent through the county, and we were allocated $242,000 to offset some costs that we had incurred due to the virus. That was a direct expenditure offset. Jumping over to the Water and Sewer Fund, revenue is right on target through the end of January. You can see there we're at 58% of budget. Our Water and Sewer Fund is a proprietary fund. And what that means is they have to generate their own revenue to cover their costs. Expenditures are only at 49%, which is down from the 58 we would expect at this time. And again, that is due to deferred capital equipment and improvement projects until the spring. Jeff, can you go to the next slide? All right, I'm gonna turn it back over to Aaron.
All right, thank you, Julianne. And now I kind of want to jump into some updates as far as developments go. As you can see on the screen, we've been growing. Graham has some unprecedented growth as of the last few years, especially last year. As you can see, we had 133 new home permits issued from January through December of last year. And City Council approved over 1,000 new homes with the various subdivisions that you see listed there below from last year. So, you know, Graham has definitely taken that step into receiving development pressure from various different areas with our proximity to the Triangle and Triad, being close to the interstate. That has all sort of fueled the development requests that we've gotten over the last couple of years, and last year is no exception. Jeff, you can go to the next one. But growth comes at a cost. And I know this is going to be something that's going to be discussed with our various department heads. When you have growth, which is great, it shows that the city is vibrant. There's that lifeblood of individuals coming in and expanding the population of that city. You're also having impacts on the different services that the city has to offer. So if growth is happening on one side, the other side, which is what is being done to serve these individuals, it does need to sort of have that balance. And we'll probably have different departments touch on that. So I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'm going to go on to the next slide if that's okay. And I believe Julianne had some other updates she wanted to share on that.
So let's talk about some highlights of what we have going on in this year. Our current capital projects, the Graham Regional Park Inclusive Playground, what a fantastic, wonderful addition to our community this has been. This project has now been approved through the state. We have all the transactions, all the expenditures and funding has been received, and this project will be able to close in this fiscal year. While the citizens and most people can see an addition like a park and see and feel the value that it brings. Our other capital projects are a little harder for people to see day in and day out, but affects everyone that has water and sewer. Our wastewater treatment plant upgrade funding, we have secured loans and grants through the state. That funding has been approved. Internally, we have set up the design and loan fee budget to go ahead and start the design phase of this very important project. This project will be the biggest that Graham has had in its history, cost-wise. We are also have a Boyd Creek pump station upgrade that is ongoing now. Tanya has done a fantastic job supervising this project. It's 70% complete at this time right now, and we do anticipate closing it in this fiscal year as long as all of the transactions are complete by the end of June. The other water and sewer project we have going on right now is Oldfield Sewer Outfall. The funding was approved at one of the recent council meetings and is a very important project to get done to enhance our growth. We do have some economic opportunities at our Commerce Park. The UPS facility in the Commerce Park, the approval is to build a 525,000 square foot facility on this Mebane side of the Commerce Park. We do share all of the revenue with Mebane, the county, and ourselves. So even though it's on the Mebane side, that is still a benefit to Graham. And in fact, the Mebane property tax rate is higher than ours, so we would actually get more money by it being in Mebane. This would be able to process about 45,000 parcels an hour, and the facility is expected to bring in about 450 jobs. The other opportunity we have is called the Windsor Spec Building. There's a major interest in this building from a couple of different sources. This building is actually on the Graham side, and we are working through proposals on how to get business in that building. Jeff, can you go to the next slide? So as we look forward to the new year, we have to realize, and I'm sure everybody does, that we're still in a pandemic. There are still a lot of unknowns. And just February the 24th, our 7-day average of new cases was 2,900. So this is not going away. We have all adapted and learned how to live with this. And even though we have all the wonderful highlights I just said, we have still had to temper that with being in a pandemic. So kudos to everyone who has pushed us forward, given what the world has faced in the past year. Jeff, next. A major consideration as we look to the new year will be health insurance. We currently have our health insurance. We're part of the North Carolina League of Municipalities. That helps us be in a better pool. It increases our pool and reduces our cost. Our current provider is MedCost. Our calendar year 2020 actuals. The plan funded $1.6 million in claims. That is times that our employees and their dependents went and were treated. To offset that, the city was invoiced $1.3 million in premiums. We had a shortage in 2020 of $333,000, and our medical loss ratio is 125%. Why do I tell you this? Because everyone knows in this country that businesses are seeing hikes in healthcare costs. And with us running 25% over What we have paid into the fund, we are expecting to see anywhere from 20 to 30% increase when we get our renewal. We won't have a renewal until the end of this month, so more information will be coming on that. Jeff, next. Another X factor going into this budget for the new year is the census from 2020. There is an uncertainty in how our appropriation will come once the new census data is collected and distributed. We receive revenues based on our census data for population. Two of the big ones are sales tax and POW bill allocation. In the middle of the slide in yellow, you can see that currently our share of distribution is 5.68%. We're right in the middle of the slide, and we get distributed based on our population. As the census comes out, we are expecting growth in Graham, but we are also expecting to see growth in other municipalities within our county. So our percentages could shift based on that. The other way that these revenues could be calculated is based on an ad valorem levy, and that would be based on our property tax rate. We do not want the county to shift us over to a property tax levy distribution, because our property tax levy is less than the other municipalities, and that would actually reduce the amount of revenue we would see coming in. They have traditionally, we have always been based on a population distribution, and we do not anticipate that changing, but I did want you to see what that would look like in case that ever came about. Jeff, can you go to the next one? These last few slides are references for you to see where we budgeted in fiscal year 21 and where we are now. As you can see, as far as revenues, taxes are 41%, and that is the biggest thing that we bring in. Unrestricted intergovernmental, that's going to be your franchise tax, your sales tax, and things of that nature. And those are our two big ones. Next, Jeff. Here's our current budget, general fund expenditures by department. The two biggest departments are police and also fire. They make up 42% of the total general fund budget. Next. Water and sewer. This is revenues by category. 88% of our revenues are to support our services that we provide our citizens in the water and sewer. Other financing sources, that is due to some of the agreements we have with our neighboring municipalities. Mebane would be the primary one. Next, Jeff. Here are our water and sewer fund expenditures by department. And this is pretty even. You can see water treatments at 25, wastewater's just under 20, water and sewer distribution is at 23%. Those are the people in LAD's group that are out there on the streets making sure that the water is running and the sewer is flowing downhill away from us. And then non-departmental admin costs. These are our debt services that we have for the ongoing projects we have in the water and sewer fund. And I think that is it. I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron.
All right. Now that we've had the update from finance, now we will go to the RIC department. So, and I know that Brian had a a quick presentation he wanted to do on the master plan that the Parks and Recreation Department had commissioned earlier. So I will turn it over to Brian. So the floor will be his. If you don't mind, Jeff, if you can promote him so that he can speak on his.
Thank you, Aaron. Jeff, am I able to share screen, or are you able to pull up my presentation?
You can do either one, sir. You should be able to share.
All right. Just a second.
Welcome, Brian. We appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the time this morning. Okay, hopefully you guys can see my opening screen there, master plan and capital improvement plan screen. So again, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your time this morning. Council, thank you for your time and consideration to listen to these two plans that I will present. Our opening slide here is the master plan process, which began in the summer of 2019 with staff from the Piedmont Triad Regional Council conducting a community open house. Community input continued throughout the fall of 2019 with community surveys, stakeholder meetings, and finally meetings with the Recreation and Parks Department staff. So that gives you a bit of the history of the process we'll go through today. As part of the master plan, the Piedmont Triad Regional Council evaluated current facilities and made suggestions for improvements and additions. The suggested facility additions are based on a level of service matrix created to measure equal access to recreation opportunities. Details are found on page 16 of the master plan. I would like to highlight two recommendations that have been included in every community survey exercise conducted by the City of Graham Recreation Department over the past decade. The first is the request from the community for a soccer complex, and the second is the request for a public swimming pool or water feature, such as a splash park. Additional data can be found on page 17 with a full evaluation of current facilities and grounds beginning on page 22. The section of the master plan that will guide city staff over the next several years begins on page 47. Recommendations are broken into short-term and long-term schedule. A short-term schedule is anything from 1 to 3 years. Midterm schedule is 3 to 5 years, with a long-term schedule anything past 5 years. I would like to inform the council that city staff is currently working on a draft of an inclusion policy, which I expect to be presented to council by the summer. And I will address a development dedication policy recommendation in the form of an impact development fee a little later in the presentation. And can you guys see, okay, is that better? That you can see the full screen now? Okay. So midterm policy recommendations include establishing an asset replacement policy, developing a stormwater management policy for the park system, and supporting improvements to on-road bicycling accommodations. I would like for you to take a look at this post from our Facebook page in June of 2020. We believe improving bicycle accommodations, which includes bike lanes and bicycle parking in high-use areas, will benefit our entire community. It will improve the health of users such as this parent and children, and it will positively impact the economy of the connected businesses. Now we will move into facility recommendations. Our short-term recommendations, which are included in the full capital improvement plan request for the department, includes the development of multi-purpose fields at Graham Regional Park, which are noted in the master plan as the soccer complex, replacement of bleachers and updating basketball goals at the rec center, continuing to expand access to open space, reducing impermeable surfacing and parking lots, and replacing and expanding boat docks and ramps at Graham Mebane Lake. Our midterm facility recommendations include updating flooring and facilities, continuing the practice of installing inclusive equipment at all playground sites, installing irrigation on fields, developing multimodal connections throughout the park system, which again, I will go into a little bit more detail later, and installing a retaining wall along the bank fishing area at Graham Meadow Lake. Long-term facility recommendations include continuing to develop pocket parks, especially downtown, developing a multi-use recreation center at Graham Regional Park, and establishing a trail system at Graham Meadow Lake. The master plan also includes two general site-specific plans, one for Graham Regional Park and one for Bill Cook Park. For Graham Regional Park, I would like to focus on the immediate need for connections to and around the park. A major first step is already underway with the current plans for the Riley's Meadow development, calling for sidewalks connecting the subdivision and the park. I believe the city should plan to add connections within the park to match the development sidewalk system. The second site-specific master plan focused on Bill Cook Park. Today, I would like to highlight an immediate need recently discovered in the park. During a routine inspection last October, park staff noticed several dead, fallen, and diseased trees along the nature trail. Due to the location and positioning of these trees, staff immediately closed the nature trail to the public until it could be made safe. It's still closed today. Over the past couple of months, park staff met with Rhett Davis on 2 occasions to review the health of the tree canopy and to begin developing a management plan. The most immediate need identified by the staff and confirmed by Mr. Davis is reflected in a request you will see later, which is to contract with a tree service to remove the identified trees. Also suggested in the master plan is the development of a comprehensive active transportation plan, which would include routes and infrastructure for pedestrians and bicyclists, much like the parent and children highlighted earlier. The plan should connect recreation, shopping, and other entertainment areas within the city of Graham, but should also include all of Alamance County. If you look closely, the sample map connects to downtown Burlington, which connects to Elon. It also connects to Mebane via Hall River and Green Level, and it connects to the Hall River Trail. I believe this plan should be a joint effort by governmental agencies and potentially private foundations and healthcare organizations in order to maximize the network's impact on the health and economy of our county. To address one of the alternative revenue sources, which are mentioned on page 90 in the master plan, I present the idea of an impact development fee. A general proposal created by staff would allow the city to require developers of large projects, which are considered anything over 4 units per project, to pay an impact fee per new dwelling with funds to be used for future development within the Recreation and Parks Department. To give an example of a potential revenue, I calculated the value of city recreation facilities and operating budgets and divided that total by the number of parcels currently in the city to get a potential impact development fee. I then multiplied the impact development fee by the number of units approved by council since 2020 and got a total of just over $600,000. To expand the potential revenue just a bit further, I multiplied the impact development fee by the number of units approved by council since 2005 and got a total of $1.67 million. At the bottom of the slide, you can see the potential impact to developers, but I'd like to draw your attention to the impact on local builders, meaning those from Graham or Alamance County as a whole. That potential impact since 2005 would have been $6,864 to a builder. Again, this is one example of an alternative revenue source listed in the master plan. Now I'd like to focus on a few requests you will find in the Recreation and Parks Department's full capital improvement plan. First, in the Parks Division, you will find the request for tree removal at Cook Park, a request to add cameras to Graham Regional Park, and a request to continue replacing picnic tables throughout the park system. In the Recreation Division, I will highlight the request for power-operated goals and retractable bleachers for the Recreation Center and interior painting of the Captain White House. And in the Lake Division, you will see the request to update and repair the launch ramps and docking system, updated cameras, and Wi-Fi connection for the bank fishing area. To wrap up my presentation, I will review my request for the council once again. One is the consideration of the CIP requests for all divisions within the Recreation and Parks Department. Two is the adoption of the master plan that will allow staff to begin applying for several state grants, including the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant and the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And three, guidance for city staff concerning the inclusion of an impact development fee in the 2021 fee schedule. Thank you for your time, and I will be happy to answer any questions you guys may have or go back through any of the slides in a little bit more detail.
Let me remind the council that we want to write down our questions as I'm doing, as you can see. And we will turn those in, and that way we can get an answer between Aaron, and the questions for the rec department will be sent to Brian for an answer at our next meeting with this budget retreat, this budget process. We will get all those answers. And just a note with the iPad, I'm taking pictures of the slides as we go, which the stuff that Brian is talking about, I took the pictures of the important stuff that I saw him post on the web, so I can review them later on and go back and get other questions. Is that all right with everyone? I hope.
And we can provide those in your Dropboxes like we do any other document as well. So if it's cumbersome for you to do that, don't worry about it. We can make sure any materials that's being shared, all the council will be able to have in their Dropbox and be able to pull up later if they need to.
Thank you. And also anything that we send in as a question will be made public record for the press or anything like that. If you have a question, like I wrote down a question more explaining the impact fees as an alternative revenue source. So I want a little bit more explanation of that when Brian comes back to us. He will give us a little bit more information just because I asked that question. Okay.
And that's one item I did want council to take note of. It's an idea that other jurisdictions have taken to do with in other areas, but for the Recreation Department, it was one that we know of another jurisdiction that has implemented a very similar structure, and it's basically capitalizing on the development that was happening within that city. As I mentioned earlier, growth is great, but on that flip side of the coin, there is the services that will need to balance out for that growth. And this is one of these ways that other jurisdictions identified as a way to capitalize on growth, which isn't a bad thing, but it does come at a cost. And I'm glad Brian was able to at least highlight it, and we can provide an explanation further later on, as the mayor has mentioned.
And also, don't worry that all your questions will be answered, and we'll have a chance to go one-on-one with the department heads. But they are working today, so we need to get them back on the job. All right, I'll turn it back to Aaron. Aaron, if you would.
All right, thank you, Brian. Now I have up next fire. So if we can promote Chief Tommy Cole, that'd be great. There he is.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome, Chief. We appreciate you being here, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Jeff, do you have my presentation?
Yes, sir. Stand by. I'm waiting for people to come up and ask for them because a lot of them are named the same. So stand by here.
Also, while Jeff's doing that, I could not log on to Zoom on my desk computer, so I'm looking at my laptop. So if I look away, it's not because I'm rolling my eyes. I'm actually looking at my other screen.
I use that excuse too, Chief.
Hey, that's where I got it from. I pay attention.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. So basically, I just wanted to take a little bit of your time this morning to give you a little bit of an overview of where we are, where we've been, and where I hope the fire department can go. So, and it's hard to do some of this because obviously the historian in the bunch is Mr. Mayor. So just a quick overview of our department. So obviously the fire department was organized in 1903 and we operated out of a building downtown, which is now the museum. There is much more to the history of the fire department, and I wish we had time for Jerry to give us that information. He sat with me not long ago and we talked, and it's really amazing to hear it, and we're going to try to capture that so we don't lose that part of the history. In 1967, the fire department was relocated to the City Hall complex and continues to operate out of that building today. Roughly 6,500 square feet. We are busting at the seams here in the fire department. Again, the fire department was organized in 1903 as hose company number 1, and that's a very historic picture there on the right. And in 1930, Graham purchased a new Seagrave fire apparatus. That company's still in business today. It's one of the top fire apparatus companies in the country. Today, we operate 3 engines and 1 tower ladder. That is enough equipment to meet our ISO requirements and the needs for the city. I'm sorry, our tones were getting ready to drop. Again, it meets our needs for ISO and also our travel distances and stuff for ladder companies and engine companies. I'm sorry. Let me let this finish.
Well planned, Chief. Well planned.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah. So Alaho Drive is closed between Hall and Rogers in case y'all need to go over in that area. Okay, Jeff. So our talking about our personnel. So department personnel in 2006, and this I grabbed this information from previous ISO grading surveys that we had. So in 2006, the department was comprised of 32 members. We had 9 paid employees, 25 volunteer members. 2014, we had 38 members, 9 paid, 20 volunteer, 9 part-time. 2018, 41 members, 9 paid, 23 volunteers, 9 part-time. As of today, we have 41 members, 9 paid full-time employees, 19 part-time members, and 19 volunteer members and 13 part-time employees. The purpose of those 2 slides was to show you that the fire department has not grown in any full-time positions in at least 20 years that we know of. So that's key to part of this presentation. Talking about our responses. So in 2007, the department responded to approximately 250 incidents, 2018, 600, and in 2020, we responded to 1,428 incidents. Now, what changed between 2018 and 2020? Last March, about a year ago this month, we started running medical calls in the city, the priority medical calls. We do not run them all. We classify those out as priority medical calls, which equaled about 773 of those incidents. Again, what else happened last March? The pandemic. So we believe that the pandemic, or we know that the pandemic has had a huge impact on the number of responses that we respond to, especially on the medical side, because we do not respond to any places that are yellow flagged by the county and the health department. That means there are positive COVID cases at that location, nor do we respond when 911 screens the call and there is a positive screening question that's answered. We do not respond. So Jeff, you can move to the next slide, which will kind of tie all this together. So We think, based on historical data and what we see, projected annual responses post-COVID, which I don't know when that'll ever be, they'll top 2,000 incidents a year for our department. So we are very busy. Again, I appreciate the support that we got from council regarding running medical calls. It has had a huge impact in our community. We have heard so many great things about, man, we're really glad the fire department was there so quick. We've had medical life saves, cardiac life saves. I don't, I was hoping that we were going to be able to get in front of council and have some of these life saves, have those folks come in and help us present things to our staff about the impact and the cardiac life saves. So we haven't been able to do that yet, but we will do that one day. And I tell you, when you hear from a person that was basically dead and was brought back by the fire department, first responders, what an impact that has on staff and the fire department. Okay, Jeff. So I did a quick SWOT analysis. This is part of this presentation. So what are the strengths of the Grand Fire Department? The number one strength of our fire department will always be our members. Our members is what drives this department. It's what allows us to do the things that we do. It's the dedication of our members, both paid and volunteer. We are so lucky. We're so fortunate. Our public image. So this has been a focus of my administration. I know when I was hired, there was a public survey that was done, and part of that was the image of the fire department didn't do a lot. Always had the bay doors closed, not very welcoming. I heard those things. So we have really put a focus on that to get out in the community. We've been a part of all the city events, making sure that we were there, doors are open, inviting the public in. We get a lot of Facebook comments, a lot of notes dropped off to us, a lot of people just stopping by. And I think that has been wonderful for our folks, interactions with the community. That's where the support comes from. Also, the support of the city. Again, the citizens and the city government. The city council has been very supportive of the fire department and things that we wanted to do, and I can't thank you enough. Wonderful working relationships with our police department and other city departments. The relationship that we have with the police department, I don't know if it could be any better. We do a lot of things together. We do a lot of public events together. The Christmas time, we do our public safety day. Some of that was affected by COVID, but Christy and I work very close together. Our staffs work very close together, and that's been great. Also, the other city departments, we do a lot of work with Burke and his crew, and again, a lot with the other city departments. The best group of department heads anywhere around. When we sit in our department head meetings, I'm telling you, it's we so positive, the energy's good, and we're all there with the best interest of the city in hand. Accredited Emergency Dispatch Center. So we switched over to Burlington actually on 12/31, about 1,800 hours that evening. That's been great. The accredited emergency dispatch center has been good for us. It's allowed us to do the things that we wanted to do as far as how we're dispatched and how we respond. So it's been very positive. And the other strength is the growth in the city. And Aaron mentioned that earlier. Growth is good. You also see growth in the city as some of the weaknesses and threats as we have as well. Okay, Jeff. So what are our weaknesses? So staffing levels. When we look at our NFPA standards, and that's the standards that all fire departments are governed by, the National Fire Protection Association, our staffing levels do not meet the needs of our city based on population or the needs of the department. Just today, I had a full-time employee call out sick at 2:19 a.m. this morning, called out sick. We've been scrambling all morning trying to figure out how to staff that position. So staffing levels is a weakness of our department. We operate at minimum staffing every day. Response time, travel distances, they exceed the 1710 standard. So that talks about deployment and travel distance and how quickly you can get to emergencies. A lack of a training facility and classroom. So we had to make a makeshift training room so we could work on training in our department. So we took part of the kitchen day room area and made it a training classroom. We have to go to Burlington to go to a training facility. Apparatus replacement. We have 3 trucks that will be coming up for replacement, 21, 22, 25, 26, and 27, 28. Those are huge investments, and that the city will have to take on, and we need to stay on track. We have a 20-year replacement for apparatus. If we don't stay on track, then all of a sudden you're going to have to replace 2 or 3 trucks at the same time, and that can be very expensive. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Our air packs, our SCBA upgrades by November of 2021. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Lack of certifications by volunteer members. When I walked in the door, one of the things I first realized was that we did not have a lot of folks with certifications. Does that make them bad firefighters? Absolutely not. But when you're starting to apply for grants and looking for alternative funding methods, especially in the fire service, that's some of the questions they ask. Are all your people certified to the level 1 or level 2 standard? And we have to be honest with that, because we don't want to get audited and lose funding. So we're working on that. Lack of fees for re-inspections. This is something I've talked with Frankie about for the last couple of years. Right now, there are no fees for re-inspections. When Bo goes out and does a fire inspection, he goes back to do a re-inspection. The problems that were identified in the initial inspection were not fixed. So he does a re-inspection. They're still not fixed. Bo sometimes goes to places 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and they never get fixed because there's no reason to fix them, because there's no fee associated with that. I think we have to put that in our fee schedule when we do our budget this year. I think we should do the inspection and the re-inspection at no cost. But I think after that, we have to start charging a fee for those re-inspections. That gives the incentive for people to fix those problems. And also the staff hours that Bo spends going out and doing re-inspections, that would help that. We spend so much time, I think, doing re-inspections that we sometimes don't do a good job of getting all of our inspections done. Also, an aging volunteer firefighting force. I think that's something that is being experienced all through the country. Volunteerism is declining. Also, the group that is your core volunteer group continues to get older every year. And we do have to recognize that. There's not a lot of folks coming in behind our core group of folks. And we're starting to see some of those core group members retiring out of the volunteer firefighting force. Okay, Jeff. So what are our opportunities? So we conducted a station study. It was done in the fall of last year. It was concluded in December. Again, I was hoping to be able to present that to council face to face at some point, but I think we're at a point now we need to go ahead and release that to you guys so you can take a look at it. So the station study indicated that we needed 2 satellite fire stations. The station study also outlined a need to move to a Quint apparatus concept for the city. Because of our staffing levels, a Quint fire apparatus is an engine and a ladder combined. It's a little bit smaller than the big ladder, a little bit bigger than the standard engine. The Quint concept, what it will allow us to do, you have to have 3 stations to make it working to get the full credit, is you basically staff the Quint apparatus. It allows you to get credit for an engine and a ladder together. The city definitely has a need. We have multi-story buildings that's figured into the ISO grading process. So you have to have ladders. So if you have 3, basically 2 of them serve as an engine on a fire. The other one serves as a ladder. So no matter which area they're coming from, the 3 work together to make up a 2 engine and 1 ladder response. So another opportunity is safer grant funding, and we'll talk a little bit about it as well. The Assistance to Firefighter Grant for equipment. Our department applying for delivery agency status through the Office of State Fire Marshal. This is the ability for Grand to become their own training agency. Right now, everything has to funnel through the community college, so we have to meet their attendance requirements and time requirements. If we apply for our own delivery agency status through the Office of State Fire Marshal, we can set our own. There's boundaries, obviously, but we can set up our own schedules, and we do not have to have a minimum number of folks to hold a class. So that will help get our people trained. Again, adopting a fee schedule for re-inspections, as we talked about, and being creative on attracting a new era of volunteers. That's something Frankie and I and the mayor have also talked about. So we're not finding that a lot of people are now wanting to come join and be the traditional volunteer that we've seen in the past. They're busy, their lifestyles are different. What they're looking for is to volunteer, but they also want the fire department to tell them, we want you to volunteer on Monday of this week, Tuesday of the next week, and Wednesday of the next week for 4 hours at a time. They can do that. That's a schedule. They like that. So this is the new era of volunteers that we're seeing. We're not seeing the traditional volunteers that just want to randomly respond from their home at 2 o'clock in the morning to a fire. They want to come pull duty time, be a part of the organization, much like they do other organizations and stuff that they're a part of. Okay, Jeff. So what are our threats? Operating unsafely on emergencies due to staffing levels, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a couple more slides when we talk about what's needed on an emergency scene to be safe. Neighboring departments being unwilling to assist our department because they feel like they are supplementing our low staffing. Continued growth throughout the city without growth in the fire department for over 20 years. Purchasing apparatus that do not meet our needs because it must be designed to fit in a small and outdated fire station. COVID, the pandemic, the downtown protests and demonstrations. Obviously, that's a threat for our department. And you'll hear Burke talk about this in depth. Over 120,000 vehicles traveling through Graham, in and out of Graham at some part of the city on a daily basis. That's huge. Those are people that we serve. A lot of them don't pay taxes in Graham. They're not from Graham, but they're passing through. They become part of the people that we serve day in and day out. So talking about satellite fire stations. So again, in the fall of 2020, we conducted a fire station location analysis through the North Carolina Fire Chief Consulting Company. The purpose of this initiative was to evaluate and prioritize the need for fire stations in the southeast and southwest portions of the city and to improve overall service delivery to the citizens. Obviously, that's where we're seeing our growth. The study included a GIS analysis, a community risk analysis, data analysis, ISO analysis, and architectural station programming and apparatus analysis and projections. So as I was looking through some information, this is a report that Johnny provided, I assume, to City Council in 2008. There are many projects to consider. The number one on the list was the planning for a substation. That dates back to 2008, and from what I understand, the planning for a substation actually started many, many years before that. So now we're talking about 2 fire stations. So an analysis of Graham's only fire station downtown indicated that the station is only covering 60.9% of all the address points in the city and 74% of the demand to meet a 4-minute response time by NFPA 1710. So the part of that standard is, it talks about response times. So time from getting on the truck to the time that you arrive at the incident. And the NFPA standard says you should be able to do that in 4 minutes. The National Fire Service Industry Standard reflected that at least 90% of the jurisdiction should be within 4-minute travel time from a fire station. Again, we're only at 60.9. If we add in the ETJ areas, that number drops to 54.6% of address points that we're meeting within a 4-minute travel time. Again, the current downtown fire station is reaching 74.4% of the call demand. So that's basically the call incidents that occur within the city. 74% of those are occurring within the area that would be covered by the fire station, our current fire station. Adding a station in the Rogers Road area, somewhere between Moore Street and South Grand Park, would dramatically increase the level of service by reducing the response times in that area. By adding that one fire station, we go from 60% to 81% of all the city address points, and we almost reach 90% of the call demand. By adding a station, a third station in the East Hardin Street area between Ivy Road and the wastewater treatment plant, again, would have a huge impact because now we reach 90.3% of all city address points, and we reached almost 95% of the call demand. That's huge. That meets the standard. It's hard to get much better than that. You're never going to reach 100%. So the two questions I have is, are we okay only reaching 60% of our citizens within the industry standard of 4 minutes? And are we okay with only reaching 74% of our call demand within 4 minutes? Those are the two questions I think we have to ask ourselves as the city continues to grow. So what type of fire station is needed? This is Elon's fire station. This is just something I've picked up on. I've visited, we've talked about what kind of fire station does the city of Graham need? Does it need to be the Taj Mahal, or does it need to be a working fire station? I believe we need a working fire station, something that meets our needs, but yet doesn't cost us a lot of money. So part of the study that we talked about is we listed our needs, and we talked to a architect firm that was part of the project. And we think we need somewhere around a 10,000 square foot fire station. Remember, we're only operating at 6,500 square feet now. We think the estimated cost, based on who we're talking to, and that varies day to day sometimes, is about $2.5 million per station. So you're talking about a cost of $5.55 million when you talk about the soft goods that you have to outfit the fire station with. The thing to remember that it's an 18 to 24 month project. So from the time that you do the RFQs, RFPs, you agree on who's going to be the architect, who's going to be the builder, and you start moving dirt, you're basically talking about an 18 to 24 month process. So this would be a multi-year, multi-budget process for the fire department and for the city. So as we talk about 2008, talking about building the station, even before that, even if we started today, we're 2 years out from being in a fire station, 2 years out from being covering 90% of the addresses, meeting 94% of the call demand. Jeff. Again, part of the study talked about the Quint concept. This is what a Quint looks like. It's a little bit bigger than the engine, not as big as our current ladder truck. Fire truck cost, like anything else, is outrageous. I don't know another way to explain that. So we think the estimated cost, based on departments that my colleagues I've reached out to, we think it's going to be right around $900,000 to $925,000 for a truck similar to this. If we bought just a fire engine today, we're probably talking about $650 to $700. If we talked about a full-fledged, if we replaced our current ladder truck like it sits and replaced it, you're probably talking about $1.2 million. So fire truck costs are going up just like everything else. So again, you get ISO credits for an engine and ladder if you were to have some type of apparatus like this. So again, we have a truck that is due, the 2001 LaFrance is due for replacement in 2021-22. Again, I hope we can stay on track to replace our trucks using the 20-year replacement, because we start to see maintenance costs adding up on these trucks. Even the ladder truck, which will 20 years will be 2025, we spent $80,000 in maintenance on the ladder truck last year. Again, the build time for fire apparatus is just almost like fire stations. You're basically talking about a year once you decide to replace a truck. You develop the specs for the truck and you put it out to bid and accept a proposal from a company. You're probably talking 10 to 12 months. Hey, Jeff. So when we talk about our staffing, I know this is always the big one. We always talk about, buildings or fire apparatus. It's a one-time investment. You do have to do maintenance and upkeep, but obviously staffing is always the concern for everyone. And I'm sure that's going to be the theme of today as other department heads talk. So NFPA 1710, again, that's the standard that we live by in the fire department, in the fire service, is the NFPA standard. So 1710 says for a single family dwelling fire, that's a house fire, that's the house fire in Graham, you need 16 interior certified personnel to be on scene. In 2020, we averaged 12. So 75% of the staffing was our average. Now that's the average. Sometimes we had more, sometimes we had a lot less. Okay, I'll give you an example. We had a fire fatality a couple months ago, Saturday morning around 6 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, I think, maybe even a little bit sooner than that. We had 3 interior firefighters show up outside of the staff that was working. We had to put a fire out and make a rescue. So, you know, you can see how that can impact service delivery. So a building fire and apartment fires. We're having apartments blowing up all over Graham. We're having commercial building as well. So FPA says you need 27 interior certified firefighters on the scene of an apartment fire or a commercial building fire. Again, we averaged 12. That seems to be a pretty good average for us. That's 44% of the staff that's needed to work safely on a fire scene for a building fire or an apartment fire. And out of that 12, it's not broke down. So we have interior certified volunteers and we have support volunteers. So the support folks, they do a lot of the exterior work outside. They run the trucks, do the hydrant work, get the equipment ready. All those things help switch out air packs, take equipment to and from the structure and those sort of things. And we have our interior certified. So everybody's got a job to do on the fire scene. This references how many firefighters do you have that can actually put an air pack on and go in a structure. So that's just a visual of kind of what we deal with. So we have recently put an automatic aid agreement together. The council approved that. So we do have automatic aid agreements with Hall River, Mebane, Swepsonville, and EM Holt. So they're providing assistance to us, but they're not always available. We have to recognize that. One of the slides I had previously on here, I made a statement on there, and I wanted to add it here when we talked about staffing. When we talk to some of our neighboring departments, one of the common themes that I hear is, hey, we don't mind coming to help. Love to help you guys. We want you to come help us. But we feel like sometimes we're having to come help you to supplement your staffing because the city is not staffed adequately. And these are fire chiefs. These are professionals. They also see these standards and know how fire departments should be staffed. And to look at us sitting here with 2 people on duty per day, a part-timer trying to fill in for a full-time spot, that's tough. That's tough. We have a minimum workforce. So daily staffing needs. What do I believe should be our daily staffing needs? I think we should have 8 personnel on each shift. That especially moving forward and building these fire stations, which I hope we will. What does 8 people look like on shift? And these are just the shift firefighters. These are not the 3 admin staff that we have on duty every day, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. So 4 personnel here at headquarters fire station, and then staffing the other 2 stations with 2 shift personnel each. That's still somewhat minimal staffing. I think that we have to recognize that somebody's going to be out sick. Somebody, this pandemic has showed that, I was on quarantine for 24 days. I was out of the office for 24 days. That could have been any of the shift personnel as well. So, right now, we don't even have the staff to backfill in the event that happens. During the pandemic, if one gets quarantined, most likely the shift partner is going to be quarantined. So we see those issues, and we don't have the staffing to even backfill to maintain minimum staffing. So, if we were going to build a station 2 and station 3, obviously we need to make sure that we have the staffing needs to keep those stations up and running. And we do not staff a fire truck with 1 person on it. It is not safe. It's not safe for the firefighter. It's not safe for the citizens that we're meeting on the road in these big fire trucks for 1 person to be driving by themselves. Can it be done? Absolutely. Is it safe? No, it's not. As Aaron talked about earlier, when we talk about the tax rate, so the cost for 1 fire equipment operator position is basically $62,000. The cost for a lieutenant position, which we do not have the lieutenant pay grade built in at this point, would be somewhere around $73,000, $74,000, and the cost for 1 captain position is $76,000. That is salary and benefits, as Aaron mentioned earlier. Okay, Jeff. So how do we staff our fire stations? We know that to staff all those positions, you would have to have a tax increase of 10 cents. I know it's not going to happen. But what do we do to look for alternative funding? So right now, today, the SAFER grant, which is a FEMA grant process, is staffing for adequate fire and emergency response. It is open through the 26th of this month. Typically, it's a 3-year project. Typically, the city would share 25% of the cost for years 1 and 2, and then the city would share 75% of the cost for the 3rd year. And after that, the city takes on 100% of the cost for the employees. They have changed that this year, and I just found out about it. This year, they have funded it at $355 million for the project, and there is no cost for the municipality or the departments for the next 3 years. So it's 100% funded for 3 years for employees that you would bring on as part of the SAFER grant if you were awarded. So again, it's a 36-month project period with extensions available. And I did put down at the bottom, obviously, the cost if we staffed eight shifts or 8 personnel per shift, that'd be 24. We currently have 6. So if we hired 18 positions, it'd cost $1.2 million. That is a lot of money, and I fully understand that, but I wanted you to know what it would cost to do that. And that includes hiring officer positions and the driver positions. So again, the focus of this slide is, I think now is a wonderful opportunity to apply for SAFER grant funding if the city would be willing to take this on after the 3-year period. For 3 years, the federal government would pay 100% of the cost and benefits and equipment for those employees. It's I don't remember ever the government saying that there would never be a shared cost by any of the agencies or the municipalities. So this is huge that they've done that this year. So anyway, that is an opportunity for us. Jeff. So one of the immediate needs that we do have that must be handled in this upcoming year is our air pack upgrades. There are end of lives that are put on some of our equipment, our turnout gears, 10 years, our helmets, 10 years, air packs as well. So in 2018, we did replace half of the air packs. We replaced 12 of the air packs. And right now in November of 2021 will be the end of life for the remaining 14 packs. We have applied for a federal grant, the AFG Assistance to Firefighter Grant. We did apply. I think we have a fantastic chance of being awarded this grant to replace these air packs. Basically, it would cost the city 5%, which roughly about the cost of one air pack if we are awarded this, and we can replace the remainder of our air packs. However, if the grant is not funded, we will have to replace the air packs by November of 2021. At a cost of about $126,000. If you don't replace them, you're non-compliant. Somebody gets hurt. We all get sued. We don't want that. Our existing SCBAs, we could donate those to the Graham High School firefighter program. We did that with the previous 12 air packs. We went over and made a presentation. They can be used for training. They just cannot be used for actual firefighting is the reason we could donate those to a program. As long as they're not used in live fire evolutions, they can be used for training. Jeff. I want to thank you for your time. I know I gave you a lot of information, a lot of big dollar figures. I do understand that. The purpose of this, I've spent the last 2 years evaluating the fire department. When I walked in, we have made a lot of advancements through our budgeting for the last 2 years. I think now is the time that we're seeing the opportunity and the need to put our resources out into the community. I don't think we can continue to operate out of one fire station and have 12-minute response times to the industrial park, 12-minute response times to old fields. Every minute a person's in cardiac arrest, they lose 10% chance of survivability. If it takes more than 10 minutes to get there, that's 100%. We owe it to our citizens to put our resources out into those communities where we can put our firefighters and our fire apparatus on scene much quicker. The growth is wonderful, but it is a threat for us as we continue to operate and try to meet those needs of our citizens. So I thank you, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. I remind the council, this is my list of questions for the fire chief. I've got them this page and the last page. So write your questions down. We will give them to the fire chief to answer them and come back with responses. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate it.
Mayor. Thank y'all.
Yes, sir. Aaron, back to you.
All right, thank you. Next up, let's have our voice from the sky, Jeff. I know you had a few items that you wanted to highlight. I can try and share my screen again with the spreadsheet because I know you had a few on there. And you can highlight some of the things going on in IT and some of the requests you may have.
Is this the 4300 information technology?
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you.
That is me. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys today. Just to highlight a few things that we have going on this year. I don't even know where to start. Obviously, COVID has thrown our department into a loop. We've had, obviously, supporting live technology from wherever we're at any time. We've had server replacements. We've had cell phone replacements, jetpack replacements. We've had full phone system replacements. Obviously, our typical every day-to-day projects that we have going on. Just trying to hit a few points. In 2020, a staff of two, just the two of us, Preston and I, responded to almost 1,100 tickets. Of those 1,100 tickets, we touched each ticket a total of 3,050 times. So that is a lot for just a two-person staff. Obviously, everyone is talking about how they need more staff and how they are way behind where they should be. I just want to remind everyone that the IT department, if anyone is getting an increase, we're getting an increase as well. Our workload is increased. The requirements on IT is increased. Network for the new fire station, it's going to need a full network. It's going to need fiber run to it. There's a lot of other things in the background that we also need to think about when we're thinking about expanding across the city, not just the fire department, but anywhere. Pretty much we have our hands in everything that's going on in all departments. So far this year in 2020, we have a total of 152 tickets and a total of 487 on those tickets. Obviously, it's a little skewed because not everyone puts in a ticket for everything they need. They call us on our cell phones, especially for emergencies and that kind of stuff. But it kind of gives you a rough idea of our everyday to day, what's going on in the IT department. A few projects that we've had this year. Let me pull up my list here. I think I've pretty much mentioned all of that. But again, I just want everyone to just kind of remember IT. We're 3% of the budget. However, we've got our hands in pretty much everything that's going on. A few things that we're asking for this year, obviously our yearly computer replacements that we get every year to replace the police and now fire. This year we also put computers in all the fire apparatus. So they are responding to calls. Another thing that we did this year with the police department is we connected Burlington Police Department and Grand Police Department, as you know, for their communications. So there was a lot of legwork involved in that for IT, connecting them with fiber, making sure that every laptop had the appropriate software on it, et cetera, et cetera. That was a huge amount of time for us, and I am very happy that it was as a success. You'll also notice on the request annual network refresh. That is for our network gear across the city, switches and routers and those type of things that are coming up for replacement and or licenses that are going to expire. Obviously, if licenses expire, they stop working. So there's really not much more that I can talk about there. City Hall is now the only building that is not on the new phone system. Recently, we just moved the police department over to a new phone system, which was a success, and it's been great help for, I believe, for the police and fire. Fire and Public Works also recently moved, and I'm getting nothing but positive feedback from that move as well. Again, you'll see on my request that I'm requesting that City Hall be moved over to the new phone system. It's dying. It's about 14 years old now, I believe. Constant reboots, constant issues, and a lot of manpower to have to take care of that system. Another issue with the phone system is City Hall can no longer direct dial extensions across the city. So in order for city staff at City Hall to call any one of the other city staffs in any other building, they have to actually dial 9 and dial the number out and call the main line just like anybody else would. Of course, everybody on the new phone system can call each other with 4-digit extensions. And I think that that is a great need for the next budget year. Two more things, firewall replacement. Our firewall this year is absolutely getting murdered. The amount of people that are working remotely, the amount of people now connecting to VPN every day. We have police and fire apparatus that are connecting 24/7. That extra stress on the firewall, plus with people in Zoom meetings, multiple Zoom meetings at one time, it's really struggling to keep up. We were having service issues, which we fixed with the bandwidth upgrade that I was grateful for. But the last piece of that puzzle is the firewall replacement, and it is coming up for replacement next year anyway. And you will see the amount on the CIP request that it will be the next larger size to help the city grow. So it will handle any kind of request that it needs. The last one that I am requesting is the downtown Wi-Fi project. This one is not as important to me as it has been in the past, just for the amount of sheer work and amount of money that it's going to cost to provide this service. I think that it would benefit the city greatly. However, with everything that's going on, it's kind of really, really low on what I feel is important right now for the information technology department. You will see in there the total that I've asked for that also includes taking our old firewall, if we were to get it replaced, and using our old firewall with new licenses on it to use for content security. So people can't go to any website that they want to go to, et cetera, et cetera. And it keeps our users safe and keeps the city out of liability for people doing things on internet that they're not supposed to do. Of course, if for some reason we weren't to get the new firewall, we would have to adjust that for the downtown Wi-Fi as well. That would probably only work for a couple of years. That firewall would be adequately sized to handle the Wi-Fi downtown. However, it is pushing about 6 years old now. So year 7, it would probably have to be replaced. Lot going on, a great demand from IT right now. Really can't think of anything else. Appreciate you guys listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Let me remind you to put your questions down. I didn't have but 5 there for Jeff. But write your questions down so we can answer them. And I'll tell you that the public needs to do the same thing. Write your questions down and send them to us, email or mail them as far as that goes, and we will get an answer to those questions. Back to you, Aaron.
All right, thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, can we take a 10-minute recess? Please.
Jerry, your mic is muted.
Thank you, Darcy. It is 10:07 right now. Let's come back at 10:20. Would that work, Rick?
Yes, sir. Just need
We'll
to
come back
stretch.
at 10:20 and resume, okay? Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
All right, it's 10:20. Is everybody back with us? I see Melody and Ricky. Chip, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I'm back.
Jennifer?
Yes.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I'm gonna go back to Aaron. Aaron, if you would.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Next up, we'll go to police. So I know they have a few folks they were going to promote to the presentation. So Jeff, if you don't mind.
Hey, Chief.
Right. Can you guys hear us okay?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
All right. So I'm going to kick us off, and then you're going to see several staff members. So 2020 was very challenging for our policing profession. We faced many non-traditional challenges at the Graham Police Department. We had COVID challenges with staffing. We had teams that were out numerous times during 2020. We had an uptick in civil unrest in our downtown area. We faced a CEO change earlier than expected. Police reform is the primary topic today that we all hear about. As part of our CALEA process, we continually evaluate our agency and focus on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. In our SWOT analysis, we like to look at the things our agency's performing well in and areas that we need improvement. We have a diverse range of professional experience inside the Graham Police Department. We're strong in continually developing our internal personnel and our staff. We look at our processes and procedures weekly to see where we need to change, update, or implement new practices. And we're continually striving to meet international standards and benchmarks set by CALEA. Our doors are continually open for review and evaluation. Our department recently completed the North Carolina League of Municipalities risk review. Our council will be presented by the league, will be presented from the league next month about our performance and our processes, procedures, and practices. And we are currently under our one-year review with CALEA on our compliance audit. We've recently promoted Assistant Chief King, and he's going to talk about some of our identified weaknesses. So I'm going to turn it over to Assistant Chief King.
Good morning, Mayor Peterman, City Council, Interim City Manager Holland, department heads. I want to thank you for this opportunity that I can play a small part in this role. Recently promoted, I'm excited to get into all the particulars of running an agency. And I just want to say that staff here, I'm amazed at the job that they do. And I'm excited in continuing that. So I just want to touch on some of the weaknesses. I've heard this morning across the spectrum of the city of, providing service to our citizens and the quality that we deliver. It is directly related to our abilities to satisfy the citizens, and staffing levels here at the police department is also directly related to that. We've in the past years, with or last year with the COVID and all that has affected our abilities to get in the communities and continue our programs. And then, the additional task assignments associated with that all comes back to staffing levels and ability to provide that quality service. The ability for us to consistently recruit is related to our staffing levels. The structures within our command is related to that. Our ability to plan and prepare for succession for those who will soon move up the chain of command and take our positions. All of these activities and policing programs and initiatives are directly related to our staffing levels. So we have prepared a presentation and Sergeant O'Neill is going to present that for us today. And I'm excited to get involved with this whole program. So thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this over to Sergeant O'Neill.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Good morning. I'm Sergeant Crystal O'Neill, and today I'm going to go over Graham Police Department's recent workload assessment in relation to staffing our patrol operations division. We conduct an analysis like this to ensure that we are providing the best services possible to the people who live or work in Graham and to those who visit our city. Let's talk about who we are and what we do. We are a fully staffed agency at 38 sworn full-time law enforcement officers. Our command staff consists of 5 sworn officers and 11 officers work in the Criminal Investigations and Support Services divisions. These positions were not considered in the workload assessment since their primary function does not involve routinely responding to calls for service. The Patrol Operations Division consists of 20 officers. We have 4 patrol shifts, each comprised of 1 sergeant, 1 corporal, and 3 patrol officers who work 12-hour shifts. We have assigned 2 officers from the Support Services Division to operate as swing cars. These 2 officers work an overlapping shift covering parts of the day and night shifts to supplement the patrol division's work. The Graham Police Department is proud to serve our community. We have a long history of accreditation at the highest level of CALEA standards. It is our vision to be a progressive leader in our field and in our community. We value unity and training and inspire excellence. We actively look for community partners to help us protect and serve and to keep our community safe. We are dedicated to deliver the highest quality of law enforcement services with compassion and professionalism, and we are committed to serving our employees by providing a stable work environment where they have opportunities to learn and to grow professionally. One important way that we quantify the work that our patrol division does is by counting our calls for service. In calendar year 2020, our patrol officers responded to 22,402 calls for service. That number alone might not seem like a whole lot, but the national average call volume for a city with comparable population is 9,011 annual calls for service. That means that our patrol officers responded to 249% of the calls for service that the average city of our size responds to in a year. That's well over double the average similar sized cities across the nation. The bar chart here shows the average number of calls that one officer in a similar sized city responds to in 1 year, as compared to the number of calls that one Graham patrol officer responded to in 2020. When you consider our call volume and the fact that we have not added any officers to the patrol division since 1999, our big question is, how many patrol officers does the city of Graham need? To perform this weighted workload study, we used established scientific method procedures utilized by the North Carolina Justice Academy and the International Association of Chiefs of Police. These formulas are widely used throughout the industry and to determine patrol staffing needs based on calls for service in the community that these officers serve and protect. We use the following data sources to make our calculations. The number of offenses investigated by our officers in 2020 was gathered from our records management system. The computer-aided dispatch system from OSSI gave us our calls for service numbers. We used Optimum, the city's human resources system, to gather leave information for our officers. And finally, we compiled the training hours. Our officers averaged around 104 hours of training in each calendar year. Here's what we found. We currently have 20 officers assigned to the Patrol Operations Division. Based on our final calculations, including calls for service, shift relief, and the police activity weighting scale, we need 53 patrol officers on the streets of Graham. That means that we are 33 officers short based on the data. We are not asking for 33 officers today. We are asking to add 10 officers to our Patrol Operations Division in the next fiscal year. Like many small to medium-sized law enforcement agencies, we've become accustomed to doing more with less. Our patrol division has not increased in size since 1999, but our city sure has changed. Graham has grown in size and in population since 1999. If we look solely at population growth since 1999, Graham has grown 26.71%. If our patrol division had grown proportionally, we would already have added 6 officers to account for that population growth. While that would definitely help, it is important to look at other factors that affect our need for patrol officers to determine what adequate staffing looks like. When we consider our call volume, we have already seen that we are responding to way more calls than other cities our size. Factor in other dimensions like our status as the county seat, the fact that a major interstate highway splits our city in half, and our proximity to bigger cities in our area, and it's no surprise that our calls for service are 249% of the call volume of cities of similar population. Since the time that our officers spend on calls varies widely, we use the Governor's Center of Local Government Services Police Activity Weighting Scale, which gives each call type or incident a weight value based on the time it usually takes to complete that incident. For example, a disorderly conduct call typically takes approximately 45 minutes to handle, so its weight value is 1. The estimated time it takes to handle a robbery call is 2 hours and 26 minutes, so its weight value is 4. In the pie chart, you can see the proportional breakdown of call types where Part 1 crimes, considered to be the most serious crime types, often requiring multiple officer response, represent 5.7% of our call volume. Part 2 crimes, ranging from lower level assaults to disorderly conduct, represent 10.6% of other activities, including incidents like crashes, fights, prowlers, family disputes, represent almost 84% of our call volume. We used those weight values and multiplied them by the number of reported incidents in 2020 to come up with a grand total of 25,765 hours for 22,402 total incidents. Applying the weighted values to the IACP formula for calculating patrol force staffing needs leads us to an adjusted number of patrol officers needed based on calls for service, time needed to handle calls, and availability of officers. These calculations show that we need 53 patrol officers to handle our current call volume. In addition to our normal operations and call volume, there were 40 demonstrations or protests that required police involvement in 2020. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there were no parades or special events requiring police services in the city in 2020. In 2019, there were a total of only 12 demonstrations, protests, parades, and special events which required police services. The number of events within the downtown area requiring police services increased by 233% in 2020 when compared with 2019. The 40 demonstrations and protests that occurred this year resulted in a total of 2,301 personnel hours at a cost to the city of $64,665. This total does not include costs of legal, administrative, and equipment costs. On at least 3 occasions, the Burlington Police Department placed officers within the city of Graham to handle the city's calls for service to free up Graham officers to handle the demonstrations and protests. Burlington Police estimated that the cost to assist the city of Graham with calls for service on 3 different occasions was $8,280. I pulled this statement from the workload assessment because it captures where we are right now with patrol staffing. Based on our calculations, using industry standards, the Graham Police Department is at a 60% shortage of officers assigned to the Patrol Operations Division, and we need an additional 33 sworn officers to effectively and efficiently serve those who live in, work in, and visit the city of Graham. Let's look at what 60% shortage means in another way. This shortage means that our 20 patrol officers are currently producing the work of 41 to 43 officers. We are asking each of these officers to do twice the work, not just every now and then, not just when there's a special event or a critical incident, every single day. You might ask how we're surviving if we're 60% short. We are all making sacrifices. When officers are attending training sessions, shifts are left short and must be supplemented by officers from other shifts or divisions. If the shift doesn't meet minimum staffing, training is canceled. When officers need time off, supervisors manage those requests based on minimum staffing requirements. Sometimes those supervisors can't grant requests for time off. When the call volume is high and a hot call is dispatched, we are sacrificing officer safety when only one officer can immediately respond to a multi-officer call. At other times, our calls stack up and we respond to incidents that exceed available staffing. When we're down several reports and another call comes in, sometimes we resort to telephone response to handle the load. This limits our face-to-face contact and decreases our community engagement. What are the consequences of being 60% understaffed? I think everybody can relate to being overworked and understaffed at some point in their life. It's certainly not easy personally, but there are also consequences for the city of Graham. Here are just some of the potential and actual consequences. Increased voluntary or even mandatory referrals to the Employee Assistance and Counseling Program. Turnover, fatigue, decreases in productivity, an increasing bank of comp time, which can result in actual payouts, wellness issues, reactive policing instead of proactive policing, and a negative effect on our community relations. These negative consequences affect the well-being of our officers, and it can impact officer safety, can make our residents and visitors feel less safe, and can cost our city a considerable amount of money. Every officer in a uniform at Graham Police Department wears a patch on their arm that says that Graham is a city designed for living. If we maintain our reputation and our goals of designing a safe and happy place for our residents and those who visit Graham, we must give our patrol division more tools to effectively and efficiently serve our community. We need more officers to do that. We know that increasing our patrol staffing by 60% is not feasible in one budget cycle. Still, we want to stay true to our vision for the Graham Police Department. Our vision is to be a leading, progressive, and a unified agency of highly trained professionals who inspire excellence within law enforcement and partner with others to protect, serve, and create a safe community. With that vision in mind, we need to start by adding 10 sworn law enforcement officers to our patrol operations division. 10 additional patrol officers will allow us to add 5 officers each day to patrol our city and respond to calls for services. 10 additional officers will increase our availability to allow officers and supervisors to attend training and manage comp time and time off. 10 additional officers will allow our staff to give individualized attention to the call at hand without being down 3 reports, and minimize call holding for the next available officer because all officers are already on calls. We ask for 10 additional officers in the upcoming budget cycle so that we can better serve our officers, our city, and our community and move us closer to achieving our vision.
So with this ask for 10 officers, we know that that's going to be a reoccurring annual cost of $620,000. We would like to do a staggered deployment for the first year, and the staggered deployment would allow us to increase $465,000 with deploying 5 in July and 5 additional officers in January. In our capital improvement request, we have also requested funding for additional downtown cameras. We would like to install 3 additional security cameras in the downtown area that allows for better viewing in the event we have additional civil unrest or when we're hosting special events and having large numbers of people in our downtown area. There was also a submission for a fencing. We've had incidents where we've had folks around our facility attempting to break into police vehicles. And then we have submitted CIP request for additional HVAC replacement. Currently, last budget cycle, we were awarded $70,000. So for 2 units was the projection, and we secured bidding and was able to replace 4 of the 5 units through bids. So now we just need additional funding for the one last unit that is the original heat and air unit with the building. And then we've also submitted CIP request for flooring replacement as the flooring is wearing out. This is the original flooring in the building, and we're starting to have tiles pop up everywhere. Thank you for your time. We look forward to answering and responding to, I'm sure, many questions about our staffing and our study.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate you being here and the staff. Rodney, congratulations for your promotion. We know you'll do a great job for us. I remind the council to write down your questions and your responses, and the general public to email those responses to the city clerk. And we will get an answer for each one of the questions. Thank you again, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we're going to our Public Works Department. So now we have Bert, who's in the room with me now. Turn the camera to him and let him take off.
Welcome, Bert. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to talk to you. Some of the things I'm going to be going over in my initial opening statement is what everything you've heard to this point is about. Each one of us department heads are very passionate about our world, what we do, and it's reflecting in what we're presenting. Just go over some numbers. We're talking about growth. Aaron's got a map that we just put together. We're just showing subdivisions, how many houses are in them, when they were approved. If we start with our populations, if you look at since 1990 till now, the state has increased 3.7 million. The county is 61,000 and the city is 5,500 since 1990. If you look at traffic data, on our average daily traffic on the interstate is about 132,000 cars a day, which is a 35,000 car a day increase since 2002. The number that Tommy referred to earlier, the 120,000 trips a day, that excludes the interstate. That is the traffic data at the entry points to the city. That explains a lot of the conversations we're having about everybody being busy. While our population has grew, the amount of traffic coming into and through the city has outpaced the housing growth. If you look outside the city, around, down 87, down Swept Sachs Road, you say they're building houses everywhere. The interstate's where they're coming. They're coming here, getting on the interstate, going east or west for jobs. Us as city staff, we have to deal with that population that lives outside the city coming to the interstate. When you talk about housing, council's approved since 2015, that's what the map shows, 2,460 single-family homes, 590 multi-family or apartments. If you use your per household figures, that's about 7,000 more people. What that affects in infrastructure, in 2006, we were 57 miles of road. 2020, we're 63 miles of road. And these subdivisions that are approved and being built, when they're completed, will be at 81.5 miles. Currently, we need to be paving 4 miles of road a year to stay on schedule. The new increases to road will push us to needing to be paving 5.4 miles a year. Since 2006, we've added 24 additional miles of roads, water lines, sewer lines, sidewalks, and storm drain. At fuel prices at $3 a gallon, the extra 24 miles adds $3,500 a year to the budget for sanitation for fuel for just the automated trash truck to drive down that road once a week. At current paving prices, the extra miles of road adds a $5.4 million paving liability in the future at today's costs. What will it cost to pave a road in 15 or 20 years? When you talk about paving roads, our major funding for that is POW bill funding. At our current rate, using population estimations for those houses and the miles of road, it will generate $2.4 million over 15 years. That'll leave us about $3 million short when it comes time to maintain these roads in the future. While we're on the subject of POW bill, in 2007, POW bill aid for the state was $157 million. In 2020, we're down to $132 million, or $25 million less in state aid going out to the municipalities. Because the Powell bill is separated 75% population and 25% road miles, the 15 largest cities in the state get almost 70% of the funding. The other 490 entities get the remaining 30%. We're looking at increased costs. You know, you've heard each department talking about increased costs. Big truck tires for fire trucks, trash trucks, dump trucks. They have increased $150 a tire since 2007. In sanitation, we go through a lot of tires because the stop and go nature of the trash truck wears them out. And then we're backing over trash at the landfill to dump. So we continually have to change tires on trash trucks because of mainly damage from the landfill. The trash truck that we're proposing to purchase in 2006, a trash truck was $168,000. Now we're over $300,000. If you look at the dump truck, the 1998 dump truck would pay $64,000 for it. Now we're $160,000 for a dump truck. So that just gives you some idea of the growth, how growth affects us at Public Works as the rest of the city. And when you're talking about call volume, in the past 12 months, I have in excess of 48,000 work orders in the 311 system. That's 48,000 work orders in the past 12 months. All right. In property maintenance, and we just recently passed our cemetery ordinance, and we're working on a new software program to help keep up things better. And we're working in Linwood Cemetery to lay out plots and get GIS layers so that we can proceed with selling graves in that area. As we move forward, we will need to do ground penetrating radar and place some unknown markers on the areas where somebody is buried, but there's no markings there. We have been maintaining the Main Street interchange of 85. I don't know if you've noticed the difference in the way it looks. We've been trying to keep it mowed every 2 or 3 weeks and keep trash picked up. We usually pick up between 8 and 10 55-gallon bags of litter every 2 to 3 weeks. That's about all the time, extra staff time we have to take care of stuff. If the other interchanges was desired to be taken care of, we'd have to add staffing. DOT will pay some money towards the maintenance of these interchanges. Rough figures they're giving us is about $10,000 a year annually if we took care of all 3 of them. Excuse me a minute. We're still dealing with fire ants. In the past year, we treated over 1,100 miles in various areas in the city. A lot of them's been at the wastewater treatment plant. In our capital improvement request, we have a 1980 bucket truck that we're needing to be replaced because it's one broke part, obsolete part away from not being repairable. And we got a Ventrac mower that's used to mow slopes to help mow like the dams at the lake and the slopes at the wastewater plant. It also would allow us to mow some wetter areas earlier rather than waiting for them to dry out. In the street department, in the last budget year, we repaved 2.1 miles of road. To pave 4 miles a year at current pricing, we're looking at $880,000, and that's not counting repair, curb patching or anything like that. When our network increases to 81.5 miles, that would be $1.1 million at current rate. Talking about Powell bill again and developments and the way developments are built. If you look at Shikori Hills as its current build out, because the subdivision was never completed, at the current foot of roads and population, it take 175 years of Powell bill funding to pay the surface of that road. Forks of Alamance at its current density and miles of road would take 40 years of Powell bill funding at today's prices. And Riley's Meadow would take 20 years at the current rate and price. Some of the struggles we're having with paving, A and B contracting used to give us really, really great prices in the $7 to $8 a yard range for resurfacing. They went out of business. We started with Riley Paving, giving us some pretty good pricing, $9 to $10 range. They were recently bought out by Fred Smith. Now we're looking at $14 a square yard. It's the best price we've been able to find so far. All that relates to less miles with more money. We're working on asphalt preservation. We've done a test street on Whitsett between Washington and Sideview. Is one product that we've tried. We're fixing to try another product on a section of Broadway Drive. We're going to have to start keeping our good roads, find some way to keep our good roads good longer, because we're not going to be there when they need to be resurfaced because we're just too far behind. We've purchased a couple small crack sealers, and we've been working on crack sealing to try to make the roads last longer. CIP request in the street department, we got a signed refractometer. That is a federal requirement to test the retroreflectivity of the signs that we have been replacing over the last, well, we started about 8 years ago, replacing a section of the city at a time. Truby Drive is a concrete road next to Flying J's. The road is failing, and the truck count because of Flying J's is about 80 tractor trailers an hour. We need to proceed with getting plans in place to fix this road because we don't have much more time to keep kicking a can on it. Marshall, Trevora, Pomeroy, those pipes are beyond their service life. You know, Marshall Street is a metal pipe with a 40-year life expectancy that I think Chip could maybe answer that. It's been in the ground at least 60 years. The bottom's rotting out of it, and it's a continual maintenance issue. We've got to go over to one of them three streets every 6 months to a year, saw a hole in it, put a Band-Aid on it, and put the top back on. The way it's phased out in the TRC, in the capital improvement plan, is to do a little bit every year. Because the total project price estimated right now is about $2 million. We have in our paving our municipal parking lots. Our recommendation is to try to pave one a year. Most of our parking lots have not been resurfaced in 30 years, and if you look at them, it shows. Public Works asphalt is the worst asphalt in the city. It's sort of like the old mechanic. His car is the worst car because he never has time to do anything to his own car because he's working on somebody else's. Tandem dump truck replacement is to replace a 1998 truck. It served us well. Issues you run into, while yes, we could hire a truck sometimes in emergency events, snow, ice, tornadoes, hurricanes, those are not available because they're sucked up so fast. There's just not enough trucks available for demand. So if we don't have, you know, equipment when we need it in emergency situations, responses will suffer. If our response suffers, emergency services response suffer. Because if we can't get trees out of the road, they can't get there. And we got a pickup truck replacement for the street superintendent. With all the new development growth we're having, we're needing more cab room to be able to keep plans to go to these jobs so we can keep up with what we're doing. Outside of the CIP, we've got our MS4 permit for Jordan Lake. Our cost every year is rising on that. You know, we got $45,000 in the budget this year for compliance. We've already spent that. And so we'll be over on that line again. So we'll need to increase some funding in that area. In the garage, the only thing we have in there is we need a new to replace our tire machine. With the newer tires, you know, larger rim diameters and shorter sidewalls, the machine we have just doesn't have enough horsepower on the turntable to get the tires off and back on. In sanitation, I'm gonna start with something that we'll definitely have to deal with next year, but we need to be mindful of it. Our current recycling contract expires June the 30th of 2022. Mebane would be a good bellwether as to what the next contract will look like. Taking our can count and their current rates, we're looking at about $240,000 a year, plus $145 a ton contamination fee for any loads that contain more than 10% contamination. This effectively triples the cost of recycling for the city of Graham. I have been working with other municipalities, having conversations on ways that we can move forward together and hopefully all of us save some money. On the solid waste side, our tonnages have been increasing every year for the last 6-8 years. It goes with populations. You add more people, you add tonnage. The COVID spike in the spring was pretty tremendous. We had about a 40% increase in solid waste, about 120% increase in bulk pickups, and a 400% increase in yard waste when everybody was at home cleaning up their yards. Our yard waste numbers have returned to normal. Our bulk pickups and solid waste are still elevated, but they have came down. What that has led to is I'm having to run 3 trucks on our Friday route because our tonnage just can't be handled by 2. And as we keep building out houses, that 3rd truck is going to have to be full-time on the Friday route as well as Wednesday. As far as sanitation, the average tonnage per house per year is about a ton, or about 2,000 pounds. Current tipping fee is $40 a ton. The $3.50 a month sanitation fee is $32 a year. So we're covering just the cost of the sanitation fee with our fee, and that is if they don't ask for a bulk pickup. The new houses that are approved will add about $100,000 a year in tipping fee based off of these numbers. A 95-gallon trash cart is a half a cubic yard. 700 carts on a route is equal to 44 8-yard dumpsters. If you look at the current can count, we dump around 140,000 cans per year per truck. And the truck goes through about 70 pack cycles a year. In a 5-year lifespan, that's 700,000 arm cycles and 350,000 pack cycles. Speaking on the 700 carts on the route, 100 carts per hour rate equals dumping a cart every 40 seconds. That's why when we get to the end 5-6 years, we need to be replacing trucks because they're wore out. We've run the stuffings out of them. With COVID, we've had to run one of our backup trucks as a frontline truck. So far this year, we've had to spend $21,000 just to keep it on the road. In the 1920 budget, our total cost per account or per house was $12.30 a month. And that's for providing all sanitation services, trash, bulk pickup, yard waste, bulk brush, and recycling. The 2,460 new approved homes, Public Works will need $254,000 to provide the carts, to pay for the carts to provide for the residents. At our current sanitation fees, it takes 17 months worth of sanitation fee just to pay for the carts for the resident. Our current fee for combined recycling and solid waste is $6.25 a month. When you look at the number of cans we have to the number of employees we have in sanitation, we have 1,070 houses per sanitation employee. If you look at Mebane, their sanitation fee is $8 a month, and they have 638 houses per sanitation employee. And this year they're proposing a $1.4 million budget for their sanitation department with no capital improvements. Burlington, their current sanitation fees are $7.68 a month, going to $9.04 a month, June the 1st. They have 804 carts or houses per sanitation employee. Elon sanitation fee is $9 a month. Gibsonville sanitation fee is $8 a month. Just like, you know, bulk pickups, we've had just shy of 2,000 bulk pickups in the past 12 months. That's averaging 48 a week. If you figure 15 minutes a stop, that's 12 and a half hours for a crew just to pick up bulk pickup one day a week. Yard waste in the past year, we've picked up over 500 tons more than we did the year before. And that's the COVID bounce where everybody was cleaning their yards up. I've put in for a grant to try to start moving to dumpsters in our downtown area. Our goal would be to do one block per year, providing we can make agreements with property owners to place those dumpsters. This will help reduce staff time downtown to give us more time to deal with the residential growth. The prices I've got and through the grant, we would work out while it would cost more per month for the dumpsters than we're currently taking in for the carts. The tipping fees that we're having to pay now for the trash downtown is included in the dumpster price. So it's pretty close to a wash to switch to dumpsters for what downtown businesses are currently paying to change to a different business model. Some of the other issues we're dealing with in sanitation is illegal dumping and littering. Some of the litter issue is directed to the 120,000 cars a day, excluding the interstate that comes to our town. Some of it is where residents, when they don't bag their trash, and on windy days, trash blows out of the can. When we dump the can, trash falls everywhere. The illegal dumping, especially tires, is becoming an issue. We've had River Street and Longest. We went and put some signs up over there because we was having to clean up a truckload of tires a week. It seems to have slowed them down in their area, but it seems they have moved to other areas in town. And now instead of dumping a whole load in one spot, they're dumping 8-10 tires on this vacant lot, 8-10 tires at this vacant house. So that is an issue we're working on. We're trying to get, talking with residents, see if we got a doorbell camera, different things we can do to try to help solve this problem long term. Like I say, the signs that we installed appear to just be pushing them elsewhere in the city. On that, I also spoke with Alamance County to find out what their thought process is for the landfill for their rates and fees. And they mentioned possibly going up $1 per ton on our tipping fee for a litter program in the county. Now, will they do it? I don't know at this time. And what will the program look like? Will it be taking that tipping fee and just cleaning up in the county, or will any of those funds be available to help municipalities? We'll have to wait and see what that comes to. And that about wraps up what I got.
Thank you, Burke. We appreciate it. You covered a whole lot of information in just a short amount of time. Remember to write your questions down so we can turn them into Burke, and he will answer all the questions as we go. Aaron, back to you, sir.
All right, thank you. Let's go to our planning department next. Nathan, if you're ready.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Holland and council for allowing me to address you here. I just wanted to set the stage, as many of the other department heads have done, with a little bit of some background information. As everyone here is aware, there have been a large number of new developments, commercial, residential, et cetera, that have been approved by the council in recent years. And I just wanted to say that, as we're all aware, that's an increasing tax base, but it's also a significant increase of liabilities. And to piggyback on something that Burke was discussing earlier, I did want to discuss the increasing efficiency of much of our infrastructure. And in 2015, per new household that we were adopting 50 linear feet of new road frontage. And that includes the road frontage, but it's also the water lines, it's also the sewer lines, it's also the distance that the fire department has to travel, the distance that the police departments have to travel, the distance between those trash cans that the trash truck has to go. And then in 2020, we were down to 39 linear feet of liability in perpetuity for the maintenance per household that's being added. So we've increased our efficiency of our service over time. But of course, most of those neighborhoods aren't built out yet. The ones that were approved in 2020 by council are still going through the technical review committee process. It would not surprise me if some of those broke ground in the next few months as the weather here isn't rainy at every moment anymore. Something else long-term on the horizon that I just wanted the council to be aware of, and we've had some discussions individually about this, and staff has discussed this at great length on more than one occasion. But I just want to prepare the council that when the reevaluation happens for the county, there will be a significant increase in property valuations, particularly in the downtown and around the downtown. And that is an absolutely fantastic, wonderful thing that those properties are increasing so much in their valuation. But I also just want the council to be aware that there will be a disproportionate increase of property values north of the interstate relative to the full group. With that, my ask is much different from all the other requests that have been presented thus far. I like the Chief Cole. I'm going to look at a different screen now, but the request is for a non-recurring expense, and the planning department recommends that we contract with DFI out of the School of Government. As you're aware, they provide specialized experience and will contract with an outside developer to come in. What they'll do is they'll also do some market analysis. They'll look at whether we have too much or too little of retail or office space or multifamily developments. And we'll analyze that and present it to us so that we'll have really good data that they'll be able to put together in a way that staff just doesn't have the expertise to do. They'll engage with the public, with community stakeholders. I'm absolutely certain that this would include like Councilmember Talley, other folks who are around and in the downtown area, as well as just community members who are vocal and interested in seeing change happen here. They'll engage in a site assessment looking at properties that are around that could be redeveloped near the downtown area. They would also then begin to get options on those properties to make sure that they're available for a developer when they step in. In essence, what they do is remove a lot of the risk for a developer to come along to then have that developer put in a fairly large development. Most of the surrounding municipalities that have done this have received tens of millions of dollars of investment by going through the DFI process. And in terms of financial feasibility, they'll also make sure that that developer isn't going to go belly up in the future. And Mayor Peterman, I know that you and I met with DFI a few years ago, and for budgeting reasons, it wasn't included at that time. But I did want to make clear to the council that although the ask was originally $100,000, due to some additional funding that's been opened up as a result of us being a Tier 2 county, the request at this time is for $68,000, which could be split over 2 budget cycles for $34,000 and $34,000. And as I said, that's a one-time fee. It's not a recurring fee. And then just to show you the horizon, in the next fiscal year, we'll be asking for a comprehensive plan update, which we've approximated is $150,000. Transportation plan update in 2023. The last time a transportation plan was done for the city was in 2005. And then in 2024, we would highly recommend a development ordinance update. There's a fair number of the ordinances that need to be reconsidered and updated for the modern times. And with that, I believe that Mary has some presentations that she'd like to put forward.
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, I'm going to attempt to share my screen now. All right, on your screen, just by giving me a thumbs up or a head nod, you guys should see the Downtown Associate Community Program slide. All right, great. Well, last year we were on the cusp of getting started within the North Carolina Main Street prerequisite program known as the Downtown Community Associate Program. Out of the community meeting that we had on January 23rd, there were around 75 in attendance for that meeting. Whenever I did a follow-up to them, I asked them to select their participation level, and that was either to be a community influencer, a program sustainer, or a roundtable supporter. After learning that information through conversations with the planning department, I was discussing how do people view downtown? What locations do they identify with downtown? So Alexa, who was here at that time, assisted me in a quick short survey. We gathered just under 300 surveys back and just categorized where our community identified what locations. And where this carried me was to look at the expansion of downtown beyond just the 100 blocks around Court Square. So reaching out towards Oneida Mills, coming down, including Wells Fargo, the Arts Council, and then of course that main vein up through North and South Main Street. Many of you guys have heard me say in the past that being a part of the Downtown Associate Community Program connects us with the 4 pillars, the main structure and the strategies for NC Main Street. And they have it very well laid out what we are to achieve before we can advance to that next level of being accredited with that connotation as a Main Street community. And so it kicks off with identifying assets, economic drivers, stakeholders, the establishment of a communication plan, maintaining and tracking of property acquisitions, private property improvements, constructions of new developments, and etc. And so where we are currently within this program is we've been within it within a year, we've had COVID, but we've continued to meet. When I say we, I'm speaking of the roundtable supporters that includes Mayor Peterman, it includes Assistant City Manager, now interim, Aaron Holland, and community members. There's collectively around 12 of us within this group, and we meet every 6 to 8 weeks, depending on scheduling and changes and conflicts of etc., where we can discuss specific to Graham about our stakeholders, about the SWOT analysis. So with that behind us, we are on the cusp of creating a vision and a mission statement. And then not too far into our near future will be the establishment of a board and subcommittees. And just as a reminder, all of this is very much rooted within public input. It is not a staff-driven program to where I and the planning department and the manager sit down and develop and devise what Main Street looks like for Graham. It is community input. It is vital that the pillars are connected to what the vision of the community members want and see as the best fit for downtown Graham. So looking back, although we had to pivot and we were flexible, we had successes within our downtown area. Nathan and I got opportunities to participate in School of Government workshops. We enhanced our downtown skyline with over 1.5 miles of Christmas lights. So at that time, then Manager Frankie Manus made that approval. So lots of thanks to him. The collaborative effort of thinking differently within team efforts of the fire department, the police department, public works, recreation, and then including myself. This really helped us to be successful. Oh,
Hey,
and
I'm sorry. I was going to ask you, are you advancing your slides? Because we're not.
You're not seeing it?
No.
Yes.
We're on that first slide still. So
Okay. Swap presenter view. Now, which one do you see? Still the same?
Same one.
Okay. Now? Stand by. Sure. I click print from start.
So hit stop share. And then share it again. And just share this screen.
Okay. Well, that's the copy.
Well, you can do this. Share.
Okay, but how do I advance it now?
Try pushing the button. There you go. Yeah.
There we go. So I'm just going to advance us to catch up to where we are of looking at our celebrations over the past year, where I was talking about the collaboration and the teamwork within the departments. But we also had celebrations of new businesses. So I do want to highlight the fact that the Muse, CNZ Grill, Passion, Wits, the Grand Mill, Little Brother Brewery, and then the Crematory, those were all new businesses within 2020. So that was really exciting to know that we didn't stop in being in a appealing place for people to start their businesses. And then, as you guys are very familiar with, towards the end of the year, a much awaited and needed process was put into place, and that was the establishment of the special events application. And then bringing it home of where are we headed? Of course, we may say the sky's the limit, but we do have some projects on the forefront here. Recently approved by council was the 200 North agreement with private property owner and the city of enhancing that alleyway and placemaking. So I'm really excited about looking towards the future there. Pretty soon, the opportunities at Sesquicentennial Park for making the repairs of where that corner is sinking. That will look differently as the safety enhancements take place there. There's opportunity for increases in public art and public places. There's opportunity for continuing our growth in new development. As you mentioned from Nathan, I hope that you'll really consider that DFI opportunity. And then of course, it's still a year and a half out, but we will eventually cross over to that accreditation of being a Main Street community underneath the North Carolina umbrella. So we have room for other community members to join in the conversation. Those who are listening or who may watch this presentation in the future, if they would like to be more of a part of having their voice heard for the Downtown Main Street program, they can reach out to me and I'll add them to my email list. I look forward to any questions that you guys may have as a follow-up to where we've been and where we are and where we're going with the Downtown Associate Community Program, and just any questions about what I've been up to. So thank you guys for this opportunity.
Mary, thank you very much. Nathan, have you got anything else to come back with?
No, sir, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. We appreciate it, and we'll go back to.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Now we will jump to what looks to be our last presenter for today, and that's Tanya, Utilities Director. So she would talk about projects and updates going on with the water and sewer.
Yeah, I asked Aaron real quickly before Tanya comes up, are you gonna do a sort of a roundup of all this stuff afterwards? A summary type thing and your perspective on what's going on, when will that come about?
Well, as far as, well, once I get the questions back, obviously we'll be able to get those comments back to you on that end. We can definitely highlight the different department comments that were made today so that we could have it all there compiled together and add a little perspective to that as well. So I'll work on getting all that stuff together and to council.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I seem to be having issues with my video here.
If you would go down to the start video and pause it, just click the button again, and then you can click the little up arrow beside it. Just make sure your camera's selected and then turn your video back on.
Jeff, it keeps telling me that it won't allow. Okay, let me see.
I'm remoting to your computer, Tanya. Is she gone now?
Jeff, you on there?
Yes, I am. Are you ready? Good.
Yeah.
Yep, I can see you now.
Okay.
Let me close your computer out. You're not running it on that. Stand by. I'll share my screen. Okay, you're all set.
Okay. Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. Thank you, council, for this opportunity to give you a little bit of overview about what we have been doing this year. I know we've treated 1.5 billion gallons of water. We performed approximately 9,000 tests of compliant, non-compliant process control testing. We did have our state inspection this year for both the lab and the plant. The lab was a little bit challenging this year because we did a FaceTime inspection, which was a little different. Some of the issues of the projects that we've had budgeted this year is been lead time. Our knife gate valve, the lead time on it, I was told was 8 to 9 months due to COVID related issues. So we've had that order for a little while now, and hoping that we'll be able to get that completed before the end of the budget year. Our road resurfacing has been delayed, as Bert spoke earlier about the increase in pricing. I think the price Bert gave me, it was about a 30% increase from what we had budgeted. So he's working on pricing to see if we're able to get that completed this year. Spillway completion, It's been delayed, but I would say the spillway is probably 98, 99% completed. There's just a few items that need to be done, but they can't get on there to do it because of we've been full pool for the lake, and we didn't see any need in dropping the lake when under normal weather conditions, summer conditions, it usually drops, 12, 18 inches anyway. And we didn't want to have to do that for the very small amount of work that needed to be done out there. You can advance it, Jeff. Jeff, you can move to the next screen.
I did. Can you not see it moving?
Okay, yes, thank you. I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
I got it now. Okay, for the wastewater, we treated 696 million gallons of treated wastewater. We performed approximately 9,200 compliant and non-compliant tests for that. We had a plant inspection this year with state over there as well. Everything went well. As usual, they're very complimentary of the water and the wastewater plant. The state inspectors are. We only get compliments usually from them. We've applied for a new permit as part of the upgrade for the waste treatment plant. It's required, but we're still actually working off of our permit that expired in 2016, which is how far behind the state is on issuing permits. So their state is like a lot of us, that they're having a lot of staffing issues as well. So it's system-wide. The bar screen that we had in the budget for this year for the waste treatment plant is also, we're having some issues, COVID-related issues with that as well, because of site visits. A lot of the vendors did not want their people traveling, being on site, and the lead time of the unit, getting the parts and all for that. So they've been able to come on site some here recently, last month or two. So we're hoping we can get that this year as well. Okay, Jeff. Our field operations, which is water, sewer, lift stations. We've repaired approximately 12 main breaks this past year, 29 water leaks approximately we've had. We've responded to approximately 45 sewer backup complaints. We've been out and cleaned approximately 11 miles of sewer main, which keeps us about right on track with our required permit responsibilities. And we've responded to approximately 3,450 locate requests. And that number right there is pretty big for us. That's about what we've been averaging the last couple of years. And that leads to the staffing with that. We contacted a company about contracting, doing locates for us. And the price come back around $60,000 to cover the cost of the locates that we had last year. So we're using a full-time staff, it's taking a full-time staff member basically for the year to do our locates, and which takes away from the rest of the operations duties that we have to do. So so contracting at $60,000, or a full-time staff member would be around $42,000. Hiring a new staff person. So we're like everyone else. We're spread thin. The pandemic this year has definitely showed that we're thin. We're not by no means any department in the city overstaffed. I do not believe myself, but as you've heard from the rest of the department heads. So, Jeff. So some of our project updates. Cedar Street water line replacement. It's on schedule. We're upgrading that from a 2-inch to an 8-inch. We had a pre-bid meeting yesterday. Bids are due by March the 10th, next Wednesday. So that should be completed well before the end of the year, end of the budget year. Old Fields Outfall project has been awarded, and we're hoping the intended start construction sometime in April with that. Boyd Creek, this is a big one. Mr. Mayor, you know this well. This Boyd Creek pump station has been there since 1959, and hopefully the new one will be operational by the end of March, but hopefully online and working and by the end of April. That we will be calling that we have Boyd Creek finally completed. And that is our hope. As far as our wastewater treatment plant upgrade, it's progressing on schedule. We're set to participate in a 30% workshop by the end of this month, which means that we're 30% into the design and progressing along very well with that. Next year. Some of the requests for the new budget, a mini excavator and service truck for the water and sewer department. The one that we have is small. We're asking for a slightly larger one. When we were able to get that one about 10 years ago, that was sort of a game changer, being able to get better access and cut down on some time on some job sites. Our big project this year for the water and sewer side would be we're asking to be able to do a sewer line replacement for 300 block of Long and Albright. That would be, there's a clay sewer line over there that has a lot of root intrusion, and we have a lot of calls that we have to go over there with to unstop the lines. So that is our big project ask this year. Continue with our CIP, with our slip lining, our sewer lines, our manhole rehab and root control, which is permit driven. The Clearwell maintenance program for the water treatment plant. It's time for them to be recoded again, and I've checked on some contracting, doing contracting with them with that as the way we do with the elevated tank in town, where we're on a contract and we just pay a certain amount every year, and when it's time for it to be recoded, which is about every 10 years, we pay for it, and we don't have that big amount due. And this would include recoding in the 1st and 8th year of that, and the inspection every year for that. Roof replacement on the maintenance building, on the admin building at the water treatment plant as well. The mixers for the sludge holding tank for the waste treatment plant, and that has sort of been a big deal for us. In the new upgrade, we're adding a new sludge holding tank as well. So we'll have an additional one, the one that we have plus one. And so the mixers that we have currently are not operational. They're not mixing. We have one out of service, and 2 of them, they're a combination pump mixer, and they can only do pumping right now. So we've talked to the engineers about what they're planning to do for the new holding tank, and we'd like to see if we can sort of purchase those, what we'll be using in the future. Go ahead and purchase them now for the holding tank that we currently have and currently use. And then a maintenance truck replacement. that maintenance truck is 15 years old and got a lot of miles and got a lot of wear on it. Maintenance costs are starting to add up on it. So that's what I have, and I appreciate y'all's time.
Tanya, thank you very much. It's good to see you. I can see you now with the world behind you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And the Boyd Creek Frankie Memorial, Frankie Manus Memorial Pump Station is coming right along in it. They said they were
Yes,
on Main
sir.
Street. All right, thank you, ma'am. And we'll go back to you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And I want to bring up one sheet here. And I think you were alluding to this a little bit earlier. Bear with me 1 second. I want to share this screen. This is sort of our tentative budget calendar for this upcoming budget process. And you were asking about the summary part, and I think you're probably referring to whenever you get the book, the document that has all the summaries of everything in there. We usually don't give those until, Frankie, you can pass those out at the May meeting to council to take with them to look over so we can set up for our budget workshops. And then that's when we get into the nuts and bolts of all the different requests and the budget on that end. Excuse me. But as you can see, this is just the tentative schedule here. Please excuse the March 2nd date for the retreat. We did move that till today. The department heads have received their budget worksheets to begin filling those out, and they're going to have those submitted back to us, Julianne and myself, April 2nd. Then we will sit down with the department heads, go through them, craft that budget message with the summaries and everything in it. I get that to you in May at the May meeting. I make sure you get those at that point. We'll have our workshops and go from there.
Thanks.
So outside of that, that's pretty much all I have for you.
Okay, I've got 8 pages of questions here. And I hope everybody else has done their work here to submit to Darcy, and they will be compiled again. These will be public record because I wrote them here and you wrote them during this meeting. They will become public record that we ask these individual questions. So I asked you to either, and Darcy would rather you email your questions to her. It would be easier for her to compile them and with your name and a reference to what we were doing here today. That'll make it easier on her. Darcy, have you got anything else to add on that? Darcy still with us?
Hold on just a second. I just found her in the attendee.
Okay.
I'm here, Jerry. I wasn't able to answer you before.
That's all right. I was just
I don't have any other questions.
If the council or the general public wants to email stuff to you, it'd be better on you. Is that right?
It would be a whole lot easier and quicker to compile, yes.
Okay, if we can do that. If you're like me and you're really a two-fingered emailer, I'm gonna sit down with her and read them to her and let her type them. So that'll work good for me. And I do want to poll the council to see if you're all right the way we did this, because this is just an information type meeting, and our discussion will be later on and our questions will be later on as we go through this. I'll go to Chip. Chip, are you okay?
I'm good, Mayor.
Melody, anything? Any questions, comments?
Yes, sir. I thought it was an outstanding meeting today. It gave the opportunity for the department heads to present their budgets without interference, and it was very clear, and we have concise information. I think it was an outstanding meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ricky, have you got any comments?
No, sir. No comments.
Jennifer, any comments?
No comment.
Okay, remember, go ahead and let's get those questions on in so Darcy can compile them. And Darcy, what we'll do is compile those questions, get them out to the general public and to us as soon as we possibly can, okay? Then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank everyone, and thank all the department heads for their hard work, and Aaron and you and the staff. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Have a good day, y'all.
All right.
Are you going back to work or no?
No, I took my day off today.
Okay.
So you gonna eat breakfast?
Well, you know, I kind of think I feel like it's really good for you.